about 7 years of research. We published at Stanford. I worked at MIT, University of Oregon, before I came to Breathing AI, because I was never really happy with the solutions we found, because we used VR, AR, wearables to detect what somebody's calming colors are regarding their heart rate, breathing patterns, but everything required additional screen time or hardware. So it was only until at MIT and other places we used the webcam and machine learning to detect somebody's heart rate. And then while using the screen, we're able to analyze what somebody's most common color is and or font. And we had really good results. So then I felt comfortable with starting my first business, Breathing AI, and stumbled over this name that was available. So, and obviously I'm a breathwork fanatic. I work with Wim Hof and a lot of breathing experts, Buddhist masters for many years. So I personally love a lot of breath work. If you want, we can also do a little breath work session, like for 30 seconds or a minute or so. I usually like to introduce a session with that, but we don't have to. We did it on a few other future of work events. And and I like the most fascinating thing is I think that people have different, colors. Like I was talking earlier with someone, and each color, each plant, each flower attracts different insects. Also has different colors, and I think humans are a little bit like that. We're fascinated by different, color settings, lightnesses. Some people like blue, some people like mountains, some people like the ocean. So I think tech is not really built that way. So I'm very excited to explore with Breathing AI, how can we personalize it and really thereby improve productivity. And we've also shown that we reduce stress and we reduce screen time. So.
First question, and please feel free to jump in with a question or put it in the chat. My first question is, do you think everyone's favorite color, does that actually relate to which color brings them wellness? Like you've done all this research. If I'm reading New York Times, if I were to read it in a yellow shade or a pink shade or aqua shade, it might, be like, easier on the eyes. Have you seen that? We've all grown up with a favorite color that we say is our answer. Blue is a little more masculine. Like I could see a lot of guys saying blue, but could it be that a different color could actually be better for you for wellness?
Yeah, I'm sure most of us have used F-Lux or night shift function, for instance, which provides an orange color filter. So that's shown that it changes like the sleep, the hormones responsible for sleep and certain chemicals in the body. So, but it's not that orange works for each human the best. So different colors we've shown, are preferred by different people. And there's a lot of research on how different color settings can improve memorization, reduce eye strain, dry eyes. Actually, up to when you have more than 4 hours of screen time, most of us, up to 90% of people, get so-called computer vision syndrome. So dry eyes, eye strain, neck pain, and headache. So probably most of us on this call have experienced that, when we have more than 4 hours of screen time. So those color filters or blue light filtering glasses can significantly reduce the eye strain and dry eyes and reduce headaches. I, for instance, get migraines as well. And so we're building it out that it can, right now our browser extension works on browsers, but we're also extending it as a native application. So you can use it on Zoom calls. When I, for instance, have a lot of back-to-back calls, I just feel my eyes getting so strained and dry. And I wish I had a color filter on the screen. And as I just learned, we have all such varying degrees of color preferences ranging from yellow to purple. So, it's very fascinating to develop this. And I think it's really an unexplored field, how we can actually make that screen time we have personalized regarding colors or brightness and so on, or fonts, right? I mean, we can talk about fonts. I mean, just one, we did it a few years ago. We actually personalized fonts as well, which we're going to add on later. But people who used Comic Sans, for instance, some people found that very calming, or some people found that very stressful. So that's like a hate or love font, for instance. But there's also certain colors. People have like a love or hate relationship with certain colors. And there's a huge variety of increase of heart rate or decrease of heart rates we've shown. So it's fun to work on this.
Really fun. I'm going to take a really quick poll about
Mhm.
taking breaks. So, how often do you take a break from screen time? Breathing.ai, their expertise is really helping people to make screen time less stressful. And part of that is just the built in breaks, right? I've been using it. It gives you reminders like, hey, you've been working for a while. It's time to take a break. And definitely without that reminder, sometimes you just, you're in the flow. You could go for hours. For me personally, I could easily sit for like 2, 3 hours without, on the computer without moving. So it's coming in, looks like um, most people said about 2 hours. And then the rest kind of split between like 30 minutes, an hour, or even up to 5 hours.
Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's really usually like the flow, the peak performance lasts up to maybe 90 minutes for some people, but usually it's more around like 45 to 60 minutes. And then the productivity and focus goes really down. And then sometimes we just take a break when we feel already the symptoms. And that's oftentimes it's a problem because we only make a change when we already feel the effects on it, and then it leads to like slowly kind of like almost like burnout sometimes or stress symptoms. But we, for instance, like work on providing the personalized relaxing screen experiences to not have it come to those stress symptoms. And we did a pilot where we reduced the stress symptoms over 12 weeks or more by up to 50%. Because if we have the color filters or simple break reminders, we don't get those dry eyes, or we don't develop that neck pain because we get a little reminder sometimes to relax our shoulders or take a deep breath. And it's like a little reset button sometimes.
So Megan had asked, "Are you counting screen time to also include my phone?" And I think most people are kind of now going back and forth, right? Or you're working on a computer, but you're distracted by a phone, a text, a notification. And we've heard a lot about just like the contraction of like focus, right? Of this attention span, especially with TikTok. The latest is like people don't even have the attention span to watch a YouTube video anymore because TikToks are just more, shorter and quick and satisfying.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the computer vision syndrome is considered to when 90 up to 90% of people get it with more than 4 hours of prolonged screen time. So maybe I forgot the prolonged earlier. So basically, it doesn't matter what kind, if you use a tablet or a screen or phone, if you switch around, but if it's like 4 hour kind of almost continuously, without any kind of blue light filtering glasses or so, most of us are probably developing one symptom or the other, especially when we like don't have a standing desk, we don't walk around, or sometimes this comes automatically that we lean more forward, especially if we use the keyboard. So that can that just lead to tension. We only notice when it's already too late sometimes. So I would say prolonged screen time. but
Any
but
questions from anyone? Feel to jump in. I would love to know in the chat if you put in the chat if you've been using a stand up desk, if you've whatever you found to be effective. I actually started just working on the ground on the floor, like on my belly, like and it makes me feel like a teenager. And I was like, wait, actually, not only do I feel like it's actually a kind of a stretch, right? Kind of like when you do like the half push up stretch. And it actually makes me feel younger because when we were teenagers, we were always sitting on the floor working on our belly. So that's my hack when I don't have meetings.
I work out of a co-working space. Right now I'm in Lisbon because we're preparing for Web Summit. If anybody's coming, just let me know. And we use a co-working space. My product lead, or CTO, and I, which has like 1,200 plants. So we're literally sitting in the midst of this like garden jungle, and it's so nice. And sometimes at night I'm the only one. Like right now it's like 10 or so. They close early, so I couldn't be there. But it's really nice to work out of there. And yeah, when I'm at home, sometimes I lie on my belly too. But I also personalized workspaces, for instance, have shown to increase productivity by 30%, but also reduce stress. But the personalized workspace, even if we're at home, is not the screen. So it's everything around the screen, kind of. Or at the office spaces, people are personalizing it with like photos or so, personalized photos. But then we always go back into the screen device, which is never really truly personalized for us. And so I think us and other companies are working on this, and I think it's so necessary because the screen time is unlikely going to decrease much, because there's especially such fight for companies for that attention span, but not really on making that attention span better. But it's so much, such a business incentive from a lot of companies to get more attention and more screen time out of people. So it's really hard because they're doing very, efficient mechanisms. I think we talked a little bit before the call started on like how different colors are being applied. Like for instance, the ones who have an iPhone, if it's like blue or gray, right, it's more calming for a lot of people, and there's research behind it. And then Apple uses like a bright green, to increase stress levels, so you're less likely as an iPhone user to buy an Android, because your nervous system, next time you want to buy a phone, signals you without you cognitively kind of consciously knowing, signals you like, don't buy that, that's very stressful for causes you fight or flight mechanism. And that's what we found, like bright green, for instance, drives the heart rate up more on average. It might be calming for some people, but other companies are using red because it drives more like hunger, appetite, especially like fast food industry. So colors have been really applied in many settings, and there's certain averages for across humans, but then there's always like individual differences, especially people who see colors a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's interesting because Terrence's background is bright green. And I just noticed while you're talking, like you put a purple light behind you, right? You have and your sweater orange is kind of like a complementary color. So that's interesting actually, to put a color background behind you so that when you have a Zoom with someone, you're giving off a calming color to the person that you're meeting on Zoom. It's
Yeah,
interesting. I did not think about that before because, since the pandemic, we've been also just thinking about the background, like having nice books or plants, but I haven't thought about the color of the background. So you talked a little bit about business. Can you talk about what you learned from your clients? You've done these pilots with hospitals and with corporate clients. What have you learned from your clients in terms of what's working, what's not working? There are all these apps out there, and I remember you mentioning that the apps don't really work at all because like only 1% of employees use them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they have a huge problem with engagement. Like in general, that's number one problem for companies: low engagement and well-being of their employees. So less than 4 is engaged at work, less than 1 and 3 strives in their well-being. And then for employee wellness programs, it's even more dramatic. Less than one, bye Robert, less than 1% of their employees are using the employee wellness programs they have. And they bought, oftentimes during the pandemic, they bought Calm or Headspace or others, as it was reported by us, because they saw like a Super Bowl commercial, from with LeBron James or so with Calm, and right marketing. And now they're actually seeing the numbers, and it's all because the employee has to do additional work on going on the app, creating their own habits, changing their behavior. And it shouldn't be what the companies are saying to us right now, the people and cultures team of nonprofits we're working with, ad agencies, law firms. It shouldn't be the burden of the employees to reduce their stress when they have to use screens they have to use for work, kind of. So the employers should provide them solutions that are not like a one-off solution, but are constantly guiding them and doesn't place the burden of reducing stress on the employees. So that's what we're hearing again and again. And I've been guiding breathwork and meditation at WeWork, at Google headquarters. I mean, also in jail and in school, volunteering pre-pandemic. But it was always very tricky because you have to, get in there, get people to leave their desk, come to the meditation session. And even though if they loved it, I still guide it at co-working spaces right now. It's always a tricky thing because people have their work schedule, and then it's a one-off solution, so they might feel better, but then you have to go back to the screen. And that's why it's so important, I think, to provide something that helps with the screen time and makes it just easier for employees to not change their habits, and then to get things done faster. Actually, like what we've shown, that when people use a solution that is relaxing on the screen while they're working, they get things done faster and they have less screen time compared to a control group that got more distracted, got more burned out, but they had to use screens longer to get things done.